Most people have absolutely no idea of what's happening behind closed doors. And do you want to know the truth? They don't want you to know. Otherwise, an economic reset could start today. And listen very closely, because this isn't just another video talking about gold. Just think about it. Why every time gold suddenly doubles, the world seems to shift. Why entire empires that looked unshakable just a few years before start to tremble. Why currencies that people trusted their entire lives suddenly lose all meaning. And why, in the middle of all that chaos, there are always a few who somehow walk away richer than anyone else. Because it's not a coincidence. It never was. It's a cycle, one that repeats so perfectly across history that once you see it, you'll realise it's not luck, it's not chance, it's a formula written into the way every financial system collapses. And right now, it's happening again. Because gold has doubled, and that single fact means one thing: the system is resetting. It's the same pattern that marked the end of Rome, the fall of Spain, the revolution in France, the decline of Britain, and every great transition that followed. The moment gold doubles, the countdown begins, and history doesn't care whether you believe it or not. It simply follows the same script it's followed for thousands of years. So stay until the end to understand what's really happening. Leave a like and let's start. Before we talk about what that means for us today, we need to go back, far back, to see where this story really begins. Because the pattern doesn't start in modern markets, or on Wall Street, or in central bank spreadsheets. It starts with Rome, 2,000 years ago, when the most powerful empire on earth began to play with money the way every empire eventually does. By pretending value can be created from nothing. The Romans built their greatness on the denarius, a small silver coin that everyone trusted. For almost 3 centuries it held its value. It was simple, pure and honest. A Roman soldier could be paid in it and feed his family for months. Merchants accepted it everywhere. The coin carried the empire's reputation. But then came the same temptation that haunts every government: the need to spend more than it earns. The emperors wanted more wars, more buildings, more gifts for the people, more luxury for the elite. And when the silver ran short, they did what every ruler eventually does. They cheated. They reduced the silver in the coin, little by little, hoping no one would notice. 95% pure became 90, then 80, then 70. And by the 3rd century, the denarius was mostly copper with just a thin shimmer of silver. The people noticed. The soldiers noticed. They started demanding payment in gold because they no longer trusted the coin that once symbolised Rome itself. Prices exploded. A loaf of bread that once cost a handful of coins now required bags of them. Gold doubled in value, then doubled again. The government tried new reforms, new decrees, new coins, but none of it worked. The system broke. Inflation destroyed trade, savings evaporated, and confidence vanished. And just like that, the greatest empire the world had ever seen began to crumble. Not from armies outside its gates, but from the quiet collapse of trust inside its money. That's the first time we saw the blueprint. Gold doubled, the money failed, the empire fell. But it wasn't the last. 1,000 years later, it was Spain's turn. Spain had conquered half the planet. Gold and silver poured into its ports from the New World. Ships loaded with treasure crossed the Atlantic, bringing riches no kingdom had ever seen. The Spanish crown thought it had found a cheat code to endless wealth. But when you flood an economy with money without increasing what that money can buy, prices rise, and the real value of everything collapses. Historians call it the price revolution. 1 century of relentless inflation. Food, land, rent, everything soared. The poor were destroyed. The rich clung to gold and land, just like the Roman elites had centuries before. And the crown, drowning in war debts, defaulted 4 times in just 50 years. Each time it swore reform was coming. Each time it failed. Gold and silver doubled in value compared to wages, and the Spanish Empire began to rot from within. The very metal that was supposed to make it powerful ended up exposing its weakness. Once again, gold's doubling was the signal, and once again, the fall followed. Next came France. By the late 1700s, the French monarchy was bankrupt. Just a little break, I opened a free Telegram community where I teach how to earn money with YouTube and build channels like the one you're watching. If you want to understand how to do it, there's the link below, back to before. The wars, the palaces, the extravagance, it was all funded with borrowed money. When taxes couldn't keep up, they tried something new, something that sounded clever at first: paper money, backed by confiscated church land. They called it the assignat, and for a short while it worked. There was more money in circulation, more spending, more optimism. But soon, as always, the temptation grew. They printed more and more and more. In just a few years, the new paper became worthless. Prices went wild. Bread riots broke out. Gold doubled, then doubled again. A gold coin that once cost 15 livres now cost hundreds, then thousands. The middle class was wiped out, their savings erased. And out of that chaos came revolution. The king and queen were executed. The social order collapsed. And again, just like Rome and Spain, the moment gold doubled was the moment the old system died. You'd think humanity would learn, but it never does. By the 1800s, Britain had become the world's empire. The pound sterling was the global standard, backed by gold, respected everywhere. But then came the cost of war. First against Napoleon, then against the world itself. The First World War forced Britain to abandon the gold standard. They printed money to survive. They tried to return to gold after the war, but the damage was already done. By the time World War II ended, the empire was exhausted. Its debts were unbearable. In 1949, Britain had to devalue its currency by 30% overnight. The pound collapsed, gold doubled in sterling terms, and the world's financial leadership shifted to America. Once again, gold's doubling wasn't random. It was the market announcing that confidence in the empire's money had vanished. The torch passed, as it always does, to the next rising power. And that power was the United States. In 1944, at Bretton Woods, the world agreed on a new order. The dollar would be pegged to gold at $35 an ounce. Every other currency would be pegged to the dollar. The system sounded foolproof. Gold was the anchor, the dollar was its shadow, and stability seemed guaranteed. For a while it worked. America was strong, its economy booming. But even empires of abundance can't resist overspending. By the 1960s, the US was printing more dollars than it had gold to back them. Other countries noticed. They began redeeming their dollars for gold. America's reserves started to drain. To defend the illusion, central banks formed the London Gold Pool, trying to keep the price fixed. But in 1968, the pool collapsed. It was over. And in August 1971, President Nixon made the decision that changed everything. He closed the gold window. From that moment, the dollar was backed by nothing but faith. The result? Gold doubled. First to $70, then to hundreds. By 1980, it was 20 times higher than its old peg. Each doubling was a warning that the world had entered a new era. An era of money without limits, debt without breaks, and inflation without end. And here we are again, watching the same movie, only this time, it's the end of the final act. In just 2 years, gold has doubled against the US dollar, from roughly 2,000 to over 4,000 an ounce. It's the same signal flashing again, the same alarm that sounded for Rome, for Spain, for France, for Britain. The difference is that now it's global. There's no new empire waiting to take over. The US dollar is the last pillar, and it's trembling. But here's what makes this moment so extraordinary. Almost no one sees it. When Rome fell, people saw it. When France collapsed, they felt it in the streets. When Britain devalued, it was headline news. But today, in a world of screens and noise, the collapse happens quietly, hidden behind technical jargon and comforting lies. The government calls it monetary policy. The economists call it quantitative easing. The journalists call it stimulation. But it's all the same thing: printing what doesn't exist, diluting what you already own, and pretending it's progress. Central banks know exactly what they're doing. That's why they're buying gold faster than at any time in modern history. That's why, even as they tell the public everything's fine, they're stacking the one asset that has outlived every empire they've ever built. When gold doubles, it's not about the metal, it's about the message. It's the vote of no confidence from the world, the signal that the foundation of the system has cracked. And once that trust is gone, it never comes back. A way to protect yourself is by opening a YouTube channel, like this you're watching, because YouTube will never fall when the economy falls, so if you want to do it, join my free Telegram community with the link below. So now the question is not whether the system will reset, it already has. The real question is, Who's on the right side of the transfer? Because every time this happens, wealth doesn't disappear. It moves. It flows silently from those who trust paper to those who hold what can't be printed. And the people who see it early don't panic. They prepare. They don't chase short-term returns. They secure real value. They know history never lies. Gold doubling isn't a rally. It's the sound of a system reaching its breaking point. And the world is already reacting, whether it realizes it or not. Now that you understand the pattern, let's step deeper into the mechanism itself. Because this isn't just about history repeating like some dusty timeline in a textbook. This is about a process that happens the same way every time, like gravity, like fire, and once it begins, there is no escaping it. When gold doubles, it's not magic, it's not an accident, it's the visible sign that the hidden engine beneath the global financial system has started to break, and the way that engine breaks always looks the same. It starts when governments promise more than they can deliver, when they borrow to give what they can't afford, when they print to hide what they've borrowed, and when they lie to protect what they've printed. At first it feels good, it feels like prosperity, because new money makes people feel richer. They build, they buy, they celebrate. But what they don't see is that every new dollar, every new note, every new entry in the system steals just a little bit of value from the one before it. The pool doesn't grow, it just dilutes, like pouring more water into the same cup of wine. And as that dilution grows, prices rise, savings weaken, and the people closest to the source of that new money, the banks, the elites, the governments, start to benefit, while everyone else begins to fall behind. It's called the Cantillon effect, but it's really just an ancient form of theft dressed up in modern language. Those at the top spend the new money first. Before prices adjust, they buy assets, they buy land, they buy influence. By the time the new money reaches the average person, the cost of everything has already gone up. It's invisible, but it's cruel. Your savings buy less, your salary lags behind, your rent climbs higher, your groceries creep up each month. And yet, the government tells you it's only 2%. It's under control. Don't worry. But you feel it. Everyone does. That's the quiet start of every collapse, the slow boiling of the system. Then comes the denial stage. The numbers stop adding up, but the leaders can't admit it. They raise taxes a little, they print a little more, they borrow a little faster, hoping to stretch the illusion. But the illusion always ends the same way. People lose faith. Investors look for safety. And the first thing that starts to move isn't stocks, it's gold. Slowly at first, then faster. Until one morning, you wake up and realise gold has doubled. That's the point of no return. Because what that doubling really means is that the measuring stick itself, the currency, has been cut in half. It's not that gold grew stronger. It's that the dollar, the pound, the franc, the denarius all became weaker. And once that weakness becomes visible, it spreads like a virus. Confidence evaporates. The government tries to fight it with new words, new plans, new hope. They call it temporary inflation, quantitative easing, modern monetary theory. But they're just new names for the same desperation. Every empire calls it something different, but the action is always the same. Print, promise, repeat. And that's why gold doubling's not the end of something. It's the beginning of the collapse. It's the signal that the trust holding the system together is gone. When gold doubles, the reset begins. Look at what's happening right now. The United States has more than $37 trillion in debt. Every year it adds 2 trillion more. That means every 12 months, the hole gets deeper. And to fill it, they create more dollars out of nothing. They call it debt issuance, but in reality, it's dilution. And the rest of the world sees it. Central banks aren't stupid. They've started dumping US bonds and buying gold at the fastest pace in modern history. Countries that once trusted the dollar are preparing for a world beyond it. And that's why gold's doubling isn't just about price. It's a vote, a global vote against the dollar, against the system built on promises. But here's what almost no one realizes. When these resets happen, wealth doesn't vanish. It moves. It shifts hands quietly, invisibly, in the confusion of crisis. When Rome fell, the citizens lost everything, but the elites who held gold, land and goods preserved their power. When Spain's inflation hit, the poor starved, but the nobles with property kept their wealth. During the French Revolution, the middle class was destroyed, but the merchants who had converted to real assets rebuilt their fortunes under Napoleon. And in modern times, when Britain devalued, those who held gold woke up twice as rich in a single night. It's always the same story. The collapse of money is always the greatest wealth transfer in history, and the transfer always flows from those who hold paper to those who hold things. So ask yourself, which side of that line are you on? Because the line has already been drawn, but they're drawing it. The insiders know it. Wall Street knows it. Even JP Morgan, the same bank that mocked gold for years, now calls this moment the debasement trade. They've told their clients to move into gold, into Bitcoin, into anything that can't be printed. They don't say it loudly, but they say it, because they see the blueprint unfolding. They know the math doesn't work anymore. They know confidence is the only thing holding this together, and confidence, once lost, never comes back. Every government, when faced with this moment, makes the same mistake. They think they can manage the reset. They think they can inflate just enough to ease the pain, devalue just enough to control the panic. But the truth is, once the public senses that their money is losing value, once they start looking for anything real, the process runs away from the hands of those who caused it. People dump currency. They rush to convert it into whatever holds value. And the speed of that rush is what we call collapse. That's why every reset looks sudden, even though it builds for years. Right now, we're in the middle of that build. The doubling has already happened, which means we've crossed the line. The debt is still rising, the spending is still accelerating, and yet the confidence, the one invisible pillar holding everything up, is already cracking. You can feel it in every conversation, every headline, every market reaction that makes no sense. People are starting to question the system, even if they don't fully understand why. That's the sound of a reset in motion. But there's another side to this, because while most people will lose, a few will win. Not by gambling, not by guessing, but by simply understanding the rules. The first rule is defense. Protect what you already have. That's where gold comes in. Gold doesn't make you rich, it keeps you whole when everything else falls apart. It's not an investment, it's insurance against human behaviour. For 5,000 years, gold has survived every collapse, every war, every currency, every empire. That's why central banks, the very institutions that tell you not to buy gold, are buying more than ever. They're not speculating, they're preparing. The second rule is offense, because protection is good, but in every reset, there's also opportunity. When one system ends, a new one begins, and those who position themselves in the assets of that new system multiply their wealth. In the 21st century, that asset might not be land or silver, it might be digital, decentralized, something the government can't confiscate or inflate. For many, that means Bitcoin. Not as a speculative bet, but as the next layer of hard money in a digital world. It's scarce, verifiable, and global. And whether you believe in it or not, the biggest players on Earth now do. The same banks that dismissed it are building products around it. The same governments that tried to ban it are quietly accumulating it. Because they see what gold doubling really means. The world's monetary foundation is cracking, and something new has to rise from the pieces. Gold protects you from the past. Bitcoin positions you for the future. That's the new blueprint, and it's the first time in history that ordinary people have access to both. You don't need to be an emperor, or a king, or a banker. You just need to recognise the pattern and act before the masses realise what's happening. Because when the crowd wakes up, it's already too late. History shows this clearly. Every time gold doubled, every time the reset began, there was a brief moment, a small window, where the few who understood the signal could move quietly, while everyone else was still distracted by the noise. Rome's merchants who traded silver for gold before the collapse. Spain's traders who stored grain and land instead of coins. France's businessmen who sold paper for metal. Britain's investors who converted pounds to gold before the devaluation. America's citizens who bought hard assets before the inflation of the 70s. Each time, those who saw the sign not only survived, they built dynasties that lasted for generations. And now, once again, that moment has come. The media won't tell you this because it doesn't fit their narrative of control. The politicians won't admit it because their power depends on pretending the system can be managed. But numbers don't lie. Gold doubling is the number that exposes every lie at once. It tells you the truth no one dares to say. The money is dying. So what happens next? The same thing that always happens. First comes denial, then panic, then control. Governments will try price freezes, wage controls, new taxes, digital currencies, anything to slow the collapse. They'll say it's temporary, that it's under control, that recovery is just around the corner. And each new promise will destroy a little more confidence until there's nothing left to destroy. That's when the real reset begins, not the one they announce, but the one the market enforces. And in that moment, everything rebalances. The fake wealth evaporates and real value re-emerges. Hard assets rise. Debt implodes. Trust rewrites itself around what's tangible. And those who hold real value, gold, productive assets, commodities, decentralized stores of wealth, become the new foundation of the next system. It's cruel, but it's clean. It's the way every empire dies and every new one is born. Oh, I want to remind you that if you want to build a YouTube channel like this, I can help you in my free Telegram community with the link below. You can already see the outlines of that new system forming. Countries bypassing the dollar in trade, central banks linking settlements to gold, nations experimenting with digital currencies, corporations adding Bitcoin to balance sheets, investors quietly moving into commodities and away from bonds. The pillars are shifting right beneath your feet. And when gold doubled, it wasn't a random event. It was the crack that marked the turning point. This is why when people say gold went up, they're missing the point. Gold didn't move. It stayed where it always was. It's the dollar that went down. It's the measurement that changed. When the ruler bends, everything measured by it looks distorted. That's what inflation really is. A bent ruler, a broken mirror reflecting a distorted world. And now, that distortion is too big to ignore. So here we stand, in the same position as every generation that came before us, staring at the same signal, hearing the same alarm. The system is resetting. The wealth is moving. The question is, will you move with it or be left behind by it? Because when gold doubles, the reset is already underway. It's not a theory. It's a law of history. It means trust has left the building. It means debt is now the default currency. It means the invisible tax of inflation is about to become visible to everyone at once. And when that happens, panic sets in, prices spike, controls tighten, freedoms shrink. But for those who prepared, it's not a tragedy. It's an opportunity, a once-in-a-generation chance to step outside the system before it crumbles. And maybe that's the hidden blessing in all of this. Every collapse cleanses, every reset erases the illusion and rewards the truth. The truth that value can't be printed, that wealth can't be promised, that trust, once broken, must be rebuilt on something real. When gold doubles, the empire resets. And it just happened. You can deny it, or you can use it. You can watch the pattern unfold again and suffer the same fate as those who never learned. Or you can step where history has already shown you to step. Into reality. Into what endures. Gold is not rising. The system is falling. The old order is collapsing under the weight of its own promises. And in that collapse lies the greatest opportunity of our time. Because in the end, money is trust and trust is everything. And when the trust in the system dies, the world doesn't end. It simply begins again. And this time you have the chance to begin with it. The question is, are you ready for it? Are you subscribed to this channel? Smash that subscribe and like button. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And I also want to remind you that if you want to build a YouTube channel, like the one you're watching now, and make money from it, I opened a free Telegram community with the link below. See you there or in the next video. Just a reminder, I'm not a financial advisor. This video is for educational purposes only, and any results depend on your own decisions and actions.